when I wrote the abstract for this specific talk, A.G. Lafley was the former head of P&G. I wrote it, submitted it to Lenny, and then he came back. Who thought that would happen? So now he's back at P&G. But a long time ago, when he was the previous former head of P&G, he made a statement that's pretty famous now, that there are two moments of truth. The first moment is when somebody's at the store shelf and they're reaching to pick it up and looking at it and making that product and brand selection. And then the second moment of truth is that first usage, when you unwrap the box, take it out, and put that underarm deodorant on for the very first time. Then, following on that, Michael Robinson from Omnicom made another moment of truth that has kind of been tapped on, and I think he said this in the early 90s, before the internet, is that when the brand message reaches the viewer. And there's this typical funnel that's been going on since the 1950s, hence the Mad Men reference, of awareness, consideration, preference, purchase. We all learned it in our market research classes. And people start out, there's lots of awareness people, and then you go to consideration, preference, and finally you funnel down to purchase. And there's a number of theories that have been built on this, a theory of reasoned action. What drives behavioral change in order to make a purchase, or more interesting to me is changing a behavior, an undesirable behavior, to gain a benefit. Purchase decisions today, there's been a huge revolution over the past 20 years. When I started in market research, there was no such thing as this internet. We had it on the IIeX machine, but, and we did it in Pine, but there was no browser. And I remember when the browser came out. But so today, that was just in 15 years. We have gone from that place, what we just saw on the last slide, to this place. So the path to purchase is now an unpredictable journey. The funnel is still there. You're still kind of going through the steps, kind of like the stages of dying. But you're actually, you're in front of the shelf all the time because you're on the browser. And if you're going for a review, you end up at Amazon. You do a search in Google, you end up at Amazon, and you're in front of the shelf. So you've automatically worked your way to the bottom of the funnel. The second moment of truth is the first time using the product. Same thing, same deal. Taking it out of the box, putting on the mascara. And then the third moment of truth is the brand messages reaching the reader, and it's happening once that product's been used. That person goes out and blogs about it, tweets about it, and a concept I've been talking about for a while called heralding, because I see it all over social media data. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the funnel is still around, but it's on steroids, and it happens at various times. So Tuluna undertook a research on research project to see how these different new channels, different ways of interaction, ability to use your smartphone for purchase decision, impact this funnel and how people are making those decisions to purchase. One other thing is that there's, it used to be back in the 90s, even in the 90s, there was more channels from when I was in the 70s. In the 70s, there were like 6. And then all of a sudden, we got more and more. But now there are 140 billion. I mean, you think about every web page that there is out there. And really what a smartphone is, I've been starting to think of it as it's a little mini server that you stick in your back pocket, and it's hooked up to the internet. You can put a little mic on your ear, and I can talk to Siri. And I do this when I drive, because I drive a lot. I talk to Siri, and I ask her questions, and she comes back and reads me stuff, reads me content, reads me my email, reads me a web page. So you can start to think of that little mobile phone in your smartphone in your pocket as a server, and it's serving up 140 billion combinations of information that you can get at. So keep hammering on this. 20 years ago, we had media, and that was TV, print, and out of home. Still incredibly important. I work with these all the time, the DMAs, MSAs. I'm working in this area a lot. This is very important, still is important. Word of mouth was important as well. But now we've added in social media, web, and search. And you can see that these impact that path to purchase as much as that media, TV, print, and out of home. And for certain subgroups, low SES, it's impacting them more, because sometimes this is the way that they are consuming media over their smartphone, their only phone, and they're using it as a TV. So the smartphone is a revolution for us. 61% of all smartphone users use their mobile device to help make purchase decisions. So they're using it to make purchase decisions, and they're doing it across categories. I think we had like 24 categories that they would go through and marking off when they're making a purchase decision. And then we actually searched for those specific product categories as well. And over 80% report changing their mind about a product decision, whether picking a new brand, decision not to buy, price check, changing that decision, using that smartphone. 75% of users, you guys all know this fact, are on with Facebook and Twitter. The content is varied, images, video, news clip, and people are talking about brands. 80 pages is the average number of pages that Facebook reports that the active user on Facebook is liking. So let's look at interactions. This is a new chart. This is what's happening today, not the A.G. Lafley chart, but I'm going to purchase, I am purchasing, I have purchased. These are heralding moments for people interacting with their purchase in real time, whether they're going to make that purchase, what they're doing when they're purchasing it, and I have purchased. So for example, I am going to purchase. I'm thinking of buying a new TV, thinking of getting a Sony. Is that a good brand for me? See that all the time. I am purchasing. I am standing in line purchasing X. We see that in social media data all the time. I have purchased. I am, and I see this one, this like makes me laugh. I'm standing in line getting on my cruise. So on Facebook, while they're getting on their cruise, heralding the social impact and the desirability of being able to do that. So let's go back to I am going to purchase. So we have price and review. And this can happen at many different locations. I am purchasing has to happen online, and you can be anywhere for that, or a brick and mortar store, or a hybrid of both. So we can actually see in the research that we did in a few slides that people are actually in a brick and mortar store, not a lot of them, but they're actually deciding to purchase the one online instead of the one that's right in front of them for some price reason. And then I have purchased. This is a new area for us in terms of market research. The heralding of purchase and the impact of that heralding as it feeds back into those others who are going to make similar purchases, because it shows up in search. Mobile research is here organically anyway. At Toluna, we've seen this as a sea change. Over the past year and a half, when I started looking at these numbers a year and a half ago, we were really seeing under 10% of our surveys that were opened up for multimodal research, mobile and desktop web, was under 10% of people taking them via the web. We're seeing that now over 10%, and with certain age groups, we see it up at the 18, 22%. So this chart, we are updating this slide as it's going through. So this is very impactful. That means 1 out of 5 are taking a survey mobilely, whether we would like it or not. So it does change our design. But what's interesting to me is that like all the old rules are gone. This is happening on surveys that are not optimized for that experience, although the grids, I'm an anti-grid person, we see an enormous amount of breakoffs on grids, and also length. They'll do 15-minute surveys as if it's an engaging survey and it doesn't have a lot of grids, but we do see more breakoffs if it's not optimized. But people are engaging on that channel. That's because our footprints are larger. And as the footprint gets larger, we actually see pickup via iPad. So each of those interactions that we looked at, the price, the review, and location for I am going to purchase, leads to that moment of truth, but we have to passively look for those specific interactions. So price check, that's happening with a brand app, a review app, going to the browser, Google Price Check, going into eBay, an app, finding a sales location. Where can I get X? I just did this. Where can I get a micro USB phone charger? I did that this morning because I left mine at home, and actually didn't get a good answer back. But you can do that. And then review, product or brand comparison, online reviews. How many of you guys have used Yelp since you've shown up here? I'm just interested. Yeah, so We all do it. And that means that we need to have a passive metering capability in terms of our market research arsenal. Now, I'm not talking about creepometer all the way over here. I'm talking about targeted passive metering, listening on the phone for specific activities that lead to purchase decisions. Right now, I think we're in the world of listening to everything. Listening to everything is just as bad as listening to nothing. A, it's an enormous amount of data to go through. B, it's not targeted. It's like looking for a needle in the haystack. So we have to be smart about that. And then location is very important. We'll talk about location in a bit. So usage of smartphone and purchase here. Here we see that, for browser, app, and social media, and the big takeaway from this is that social media was really used a small amount of time for the pre-purchase moment of that path. And only 29% actually did the purchase after they went on and checked with social media. And our time horizon, by the way, is 2 days, and that's important. We'll talk about that in a minute. So social media, although it's really important, I'm not setting it aside, it has a longer time horizon, and we'll see how that is. We measured across devices. We measured iPhone and Android, and interestingly, even though Androids in the US have a pretty large market share, we have been seeing, and this doesn't make sense to me, and I need to unwrap this, and is it demographically based? Is it that we're segmenting on mobile, or those who are opting in have a different profile, and we can control for that. But it's interesting to me that actually our iOS is at 61%. We see the geographical location is very similar. We're more weighted in our east. These are 2,000 respondents. And then we see that where the purchase is happening, location really impacts it. So if they're at home, they're not doing that purchase right away within that time horizon. If they're at work, that not purchase goes up. So they're doing the review and the research, but they're not pushing the button, I want to buy at work, which makes sense to me because that's like pulling out your credit card. There's a whole nother activity that's going on there. Online brick and mortar purpose. If you're, and it makes sense, right? If you're in the store, you have this very thin time when you're going to say, oh, I like that TV I'm seeing on my mobile phone more than, but you're also doing a price check when you're on there. And that might impact your sale, and it might change the brand that you're looking at. Consumers, previous research, this didn't come out of this research, but previous research show us that consumers still prefer to go to a physical store, even though they're totally mobile enabled. That said, for online purchases, that's competing with all of the other purchases. If you're looking by dollar amount, you're really seeing that online is starting to own that 51 to 100. So it's not getting the little stuff that you can get at Walgreens, even though that's one of the larger places that people are shopping online. It's more like that's the mid-sized ticket item. Group of items. And here, this is to kind of bring that home. And the blue is what top 10 sites that people were purchasing on, and the green are those where they were actually going to the store. And you can see just by the size, Amazon is just really owning the space, and Target and Walmart. Target in this instance was owning it as well in the shopping, but there's more variation there. It's the distribution around the mean is not as tight. So in defense of social media, so remember we saw that 6% of social media, and it was only impacting 29% of all purchases. However, it's got a long trajectory. And there's a great study that I just read. It came out of University of Texas. Consumers who engage with companies on social media visit stores more often and spend more. About 6%. It was a great, well-done methodologically study. I highly recommend it. I'll skip over the details, but they've definitely kind of nailed that ROI. I think it's a groundbreaking piece of research. It took 3 years for them to do it. So we're looking at pre and post behaviors in social media. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to actually kind of move forward on how people, I'm going to skip through the social media aspects of this. We do scraping at Luna, and we do it on our surveys, allowing us at the same time that we're taking a survey to scrape social media data to also correlate that with what they're actually saying in terms of their attitudinal data that they're responding in the survey, different types of social media. The thing that I love about social media data that we're getting out of passive metering and then also the scraping technique is the qualitative nature of it. So if you have a lot of really strong quantitative data, this drives the journey home. This is a woman who bought online with Behringer wines, and if you looked at her data that she scraped, she's talking about wine and bars and drinking. And you know, this is a woman with a job, multiple kids, good life, but she's tweeting about drinking wine and relaxing. So to get to all of that, the all-important why, traditional research is still critical. We still need to know the demographic distribution of people. We still need to ask them questions about why, what their intent was, that kind of information. That's not going away. All we're doing is we're tying together multiple streams of data into one clearer picture for research. I'd like to talk about geofencing just 1 second, geofencing, because the authentic nature of your respondents, when you are tracking them, it's really important that I believe that you pre-recruit, because if you're popping up a survey to them as you geofence them in, you're going to have weird things happen, like a nice old lady in a cigar store giving back a review of that cigar store. So you really, I think that pre-identification of respondents and then also demographic targeting really needs to happen. I've seen this a lot lately. It's kind of the new thing to do this year. Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Sorry for making that go so quickly.
Well done. I think we have a couple of minutes. I know that was an amazing presentation, a lot to digest. We'll take a couple of quick questions before we break, if any.
Everybody's like, no, I've got to go to the bathroom.
No, they're going to...
Andrew Jevons.
Question here in the front.
Yeah, I'm just interested in when you were mentioning the pre-qualification on geofencing. Is there a danger that you bias the data too much, like the little old lady in the cigar store? I mean, she likes cigars.
You know, I think that you're actually getting the bias when you're when you're incentivizing to take a survey based on nearby location without doing target and segmentation beforehand, because what's ending up happening is that people are just going into that facility in order to get the geo-validation.
Right.
And then they're taking the survey. So that you run the risk on both ends, but I think by pre-recruiting for a specific event, for somebody who is going to be a 3-month purchaser, you actually get a better research result, I would say.
Great, thanks.
Thank you for asking that.